Hello, and welcome to Hawks on the Wire, an audiocast brought to you by 3 Hawks Haven, easily found on our website, 3hawkshaven.com. I will be introducing our guest, but first I want to say that we can only expect our guests to share what they are comfortable sharing. Also, we want to make this a very safe environment for our guests. We do not judge in any way. It is our goal to share as many life experiences and as many perspectives as we can so we may all learn. We are so appreciative that our guests are willing to share. So, with that said, today I would like to welcome Vicky Jeter. Vicky, hi, how are you doing today?
I'm excited, Joan. Thank you so much for letting me know about this unique opportunity.
Well, you're most welcome, beautiful lady. Would you like to share a little bit about yourself?
So, I am Vicky Dieter, and I was born with spastic cerebral palsy in 1962. And actually, my parents found out about that. I actually got the diagnosis of that on my first birthday. So, as I grew up, that became like a cornerstone for me
Mm-hmm.
around what I felt like I was doing here and uh, what I do in the world. And so I live in Louisville, Kentucky today, and I've been here for about 14 years, and I'm married to my husband, Vernon, and we've been married for about 24 years.
Okay, thank you very much. And would you like to tell our listeners what is a good definition of cerebral palsy? Just a short little definition.
Thank you for asking that because it can be a bit confusing. It is an umbrella term, and by umbrella I mean there's quite a scope of what someone can experience who has cerebral palsy. Some people that have cerebral palsy you would hardly even know it, and then other people are like wheelchair bound, and it is a generally a one-time event that's trauma to the brain, trauma to the motor of the brain, and it does not progress like, say, multiple sclerosis or muscular dystrophy. You have what you have, and then your challenge is whatever you do have that you can work with, you have to keep working with because if you don't, that can become more difficult. So it can appear that people with cerebral palsy have an increasing situation when in fact, actually, it's not.
Okay, thank you so much. I would really like to know like who helps you cope as a young child and who was the most help for you? Your parents, your siblings?
I have three brothers, and I was the only girl. I was the youngest and the only girl, and they were tremendously helpful to me, and my parents as well. But starting with my brothers, since that's the first thing that popped out, I did not know this at the time because I felt, as the youngest and the only girl, that my brothers were quite hard on me. But in actuality, their prodding and poking and not coddling me actually pushed me to develop the most that I could do with my physical capacity, which I'm very grateful for today. My oldest brother used to ask me, "So, Vicky, when are you going to walk without those crutches?" And whenever he would do that, it would be like, "What do you want me to do it tomorrow?" But actually, he did want me to do it tomorrow. So, yeah. And my parents were also very supportive. I spent years in Easter Seals. Easter Seals is a fabulous organization, and at the time that I was coming up as a disabled child, it was just huge. The therapy that was offered through them and schooling and different things.
Very good. It seems like you've told me before that you were actually their poster child.
I was. Very good memory. Thank you
Mhm.
for remembering that. I was not a national poster child for Easter Seals, but I was a state poster child for Easter Seals in 1967. I was
Mm-hmm. Very
And
good.
I don't know how they selected me, but I remember I met Eddie Fisher and I met Roy Clark. So yeah, it was a wonderful thing that happened.
Very good. And our listeners may want to know when people approach you, I know that you walk with two canes. Do people tend to treat you differently, or what would you advise those that do not know you when they do approach you or you're talking with them and they've never met you before? What's some good advice?
So having the courage to ask your questions is, in my experience, always appreciated. And as far as I have ever known, other people that are challenged also appreciate it when people ask questions. It can seem like, oh, they don't want to be bothered or they don't want to be pointed out because they have a disability, but you can't not be pointed out. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we
Mm-hmm.
know that it's very visible if you have the kind of disability as cerebral palsy is generally. And children, if I walk through a grocery store and I walk past different carts, the ones with kids, oh, mommy, what happened to that lady? And mommy will be like,
Oh,
you know, they whisper,
yes.
I'll tell you later. You know, and sometimes if the mother seems particularly open, I will stop and I will say, no, it's okay. I can answer that question. And the parents would not have known that it's okay just to ask. And just for a very quick example, in my case, apparently, it appears to many people like I must be in pain because of the tightness of some of my movements. My movements are not fluid, you know? And
Yes.
so it appears that I might be hurting. And what's true, I don't have any pain. And when I find out that I've been with someone who cares about me, comes to care about me, and they've been thinking I might be in pain, like however long I've known them, for goodness sakes, I just really want to let people know. And the only way that they'll find out is if they ask, or
Yes.
if I get wind that they might be thinking I'm in pain. So that's just one example of the power of just gently asking a question because we love to make people aware of what's true.
Yes. And thank you for your honesty. That's a very powerful statement that you said. Just to ask. Most of us don't know if people are comfortable with questions. So I love that answer. And I have
Well,
one.
and what's true, oh, I'm sorry.
Well, no, you go ahead if you have something to
I,
add.
I was just going to say very quickly about that. You know, when you don't know whether you should ask, it's just your question. And if you ask a question and the person you're asking isn't available to saying, they'll just turn away or say, I don't want to answer or whatever. It doesn't hurt anything. And
Okay.
so it's okay to have a question and it's okay to answer it even if the person isn't as open to sharing.
Okay. Very good. And one last question. What would you like our listeners, what would you like to tell them if they or someone they know are going through similar life situation like you are with your disability?
The first thing I would say is that disability challenges don't actually have set limits. It can appear, or a doctor might surmise that it's going to have a set limit, and you definitely do want to listen to your medical personnel, absolutely. But inside yourself, if you're facing a disability, you don't really know what you can do with that disability until you choose to stretch it inside and out and do what it feels to you like you can do. And so the most important thing is that the power of what you do with a disability is actually within you and with God. And everyone else gets to come along for the ride. If they're your parents or they're your support people, that's very, very important. But when someone says they don't think you can do something, that doesn't necessarily predicate that that means, oh, well, it doesn't appear I can do it, so I can't do it. If you have the courage to try or you have the courage to ask what kind of support would I need to make this happen, then you never know what might be possible for you. And that especially with parents that have young children that have disabilities, that's the most important thing that I could possibly pass on to families coming up is I actually
Mm-hmm.
because I couldn't do it as fast as them or I couldn't do it the same way they did. But sure enough, if I was left alone for long enough, I could get it done. And then they'd be like, wow, who did that? Well, I did that.
Good for you, beautiful lady. And you are a beautiful, very courageous woman. And I just want to thank you so much for talking with us today. So honest, and I just really appreciate you.
Well, I appreciate you, Joan, and I hope that this reaches people. And I hope that if someone does find this and wonder, that they could contact you and possibly be in touch with me if that would be helpful.
Well, thank you, Vicky. Thank you. That's a great idea. Great thought. And to all our Hawks on the Wire listeners, it is our hope that having this time with us has helped you in some way, big or small. And remember, when you hear a Hawks call, do what we do. Stop and think of someone you know and send them some love.